Some warriors didn't just fight battles, they stopped empires in their tracks.
Comanche.
And here's where it gets even more shocking. The first tribe on this list earned the nickname Lords of the Plains. Even rival tribes whispered their name with fear: the Comanche. The very word Comanche comes from the Ute language, meaning someone who always wants to fight, or simply enemy. Fitting, right? These people didn't back down from a challenge. They lived for it. Before becoming legends, the Comanche traced their roots to the Shoshone of the Great Basin. Linked by language and lifestyle as part of the Uto-Aztecan family, what set the Comanche apart was the horse. When Spanish settlers introduced horses in the 16th century, they unknowingly created a force unlike any other. Through trade with Pueblo tribes, the Comanche acquired horses and within a generation became the greatest riders in history. Children grew up on horseback, mastering riding as an identity. Horses were vital for hunting, trading, fighting, and status. The more you owned, the more powerful you were. Their taming method was brutal yet effective, choking a wild horse until it fainted, reviving it, and pairing it with a calm mare. William Blakemore, who lived with them for years, noted their unmatched skill. In battle, warriors used horses as shields, firing with deadly accuracy while vanishing behind them. Every warrior had a favorite warhorse they only rode into combat. Even the women weren't spared from the action. Comanche women were fearless riders too, skilled with lassos and known for hunting buffalo. This wasn't just a male warrior culture, it was an entire society trained for the saddle. And the results? Terrifying. The Comanche spread across the southern plains, controlling eastern Colorado, western Kansas, and deep into Texas. Their raids made life nearly impossible for Spanish, French, and later American settlers. In fact, they were so effective that they stopped Spanish expansion for nearly 50 years. That's half a century of empire brought to a standstill. General James Wilkinson of the United States once called them the most formidable indigenous group on the continent. That's not just respect, that's fear. Now here's the part that blew my mind. Their reputation as horse thieves was only the beginning. Through ruthless raids, the Comanche became feared warlords. One of their most infamous tactics was the so-called Comanche Moon. During these brutal night raids, hundreds of warriors on horseback would swarm settlements, killing men, abducting women, stealing horses, and leaving devastation behind. For the Comanche, horses weren't just property. They were everything: wealth, power, status. A young warrior couldn't gain respect until he'd proven himself by raiding, killing enemies, stealing captives, and returning with horses. Imagine being a teenager and knowing your honor depended on how much fear you could inspire. And just when you think that's as dark as it gets, their brutality takes things to a whole new level. Comanche women were notorious for their merciless torture of captives. Victims were roasted alive, scalped while conscious, castrated or buried up to their necks with their eyelids cut off, left to die under the burning sun. Others were staked over red ant beds or sewn into rawhide that shrank tighter and tighter until it suffocated them.
This dance honors Kimberly de Jesus, the current princess of the Comanche Nation.
One chilling story comes from the Parker family massacre of 1836. About 100 Comanche warriors rode up to Fort Parker, waving a white flag of peace. Benjamin Parker stepped out to talk and was immediately speared to death. The warriors stormed the fort, killing men, mutilating John Parker, impaling Granny Parker with a lance, and abducting women and children. This wasn't random violence. It was psychological warfare designed to terrify survivors. Historians like S.C. Gwynn, author of Empire of the Summer Moon, argue that no other tribe in the region, Spanish, French, Mexican, Texan, or American, inflicted such widespread havoc. He wrote that there isn't even a close second. So here's the question: if you were living back then and night fell on the frontier, would you have stood a chance against a Comanche raid?
No problem. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit everywhere.
The Iroquois Confederacy, calling themselves the Haudenosaunee, or People of the Longhouse, was among the most feared and influential alliances in North America. It began with the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca, later joined by the Tuscarora in the early 1700s to form the Six Nations. For centuries, they dominated vast territories, their political and military power unmatched, and their legacy still resonates today. The term Iroquois was not their own, but came from Algonquin enemies, meaning rattlesnake. Intended as an insult, it became a fitting symbol of their unpredictability and deadly precision. Central to their reputation was a warrior culture built on silence, speed, and ruthless efficiency. Iroquois war parties struck swiftly and vanished before retaliation, leaving enemies like the Huron, Erie, and Susquehannock in constant fear. Boys trained from youth in archery, clubs, and survival, learning toughness, stealth, and discipline. Warfare was structured and ceremonial, not random. Warriors earned prestige in raids, and captives were forced to run the gauntlet. Survivors might be adopted to replace fallen family members, a practice both brutal and pragmatic. During the 17th century Beaver Wars, their power peaked as they sought to control the fur trade. They shattered the Huron Confederacy, destroyed the Erie, and defeated the Susquehannock. By the early 1700s, their influence stretched from the Great Lakes to Tennessee, holding trade routes with iron control. What made them extraordinary was not only ferocity but unity. While most tribes remained divided, the Haudenosaunee followed the great law of peace, balancing independence with collective strength. This unity allowed them to manipulate colonial powers like Britain and France, shaping wars and alliances to their advantage. The Iroquois Confederacy was more than a tribe. It was an empire built on discipline, warfare, and solidarity, feared and respected across North America. Originating in the Athabascan group's southern branch, the Apache people were descended from far northern roots. They progressively moved south, finally dispersing from the Arkansas River down into Mexico and across the arid borderlands of Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. Though harsh, mountainous mountains, deserts, and immense plains, this area fits them completely. The Apache flourished in areas most others considered unlivable. Unlike groups that depended so much on alliances or productive territory, their survival expertise paved the way for their notoriety as among the most feared Native American tribes ever. Living among continuous dangers, from rival tribes like the Comanche and Ute to foreign invaders like the Spanish and later the Americans, the Apache learned to adjust rapidly. Their resilience was about domination, not only defense. Taking the terrain to their benefit, they attacked when least expected and vanished back into the forest before their opponents could coordinate. For the Apache, survival depended on tactics. Their arsenal included every rock, gorge, and desert expanse. The Apache's brilliance for guerrilla warfare really turned them spectacularly terrible. They developed methods still under investigation by modern militaries. Their best weapon was surprise. They would attack unawares, then vanish as though they had never been there. They ambushed unaware foes. For settlers and soldiers, it seemed as though they were battling ghosts. Renowned as the masters of hide and seek, the Apache earned this title from their capacity to disappear into terrain that others regarded as inaccessible. Mobility only increased their advantage. The Apache could move incredible distances swiftly and effectively. Not only for transportation, but also for combat itself, horses were increasingly essential to their war. Their combining of steel weapons and guns, lances, knives, rifles, created a strong hybrid of contemporary weaponry and traditional ability. Unlike many tribes that had difficulty adjusting to gunpowder warfare, the Apache moved quickly and made sure their supremacy lasted well into the 19th century. Even seasoned soldiers were astonished by their combat abilities, once called the Tigers of the Human Race by General George Crook, who spent years battling them. That was not an exaggeration. They were quick, fierce, and relentless. Said to outpace cavalry on foot, Apache warriors traveled across terrain with a tenacity unmatched by professional troops. Their archery bordered on superhuman. Legends tell of Apache bowmen loosing 7 arrows into the air before the first one struck the ground, overpowering opponents with speed and precision. Their aggression, nevertheless, was not only on the battlefield. The Apache had notorious techniques of enemy handling. Captured enemies sometimes experienced excruciating suffering, skinning, being burnt alive, or being made to withstand novel and imaginative techniques of torture. Children of adversaries were occasionally murdered to totally eradicate family lines. Cruelty for the Apache was a message, not something random. These actions confirmed their supremacy and guaranteed that their arrows' reach extended further than fear could. Among their own people, these tactics were praised as signs of fortitude and honor. They were terrible realities brought to life for their adversaries. The Apache were among the last tribes to surrender by the late 1800s, even as American expansion brought overwhelming military power. Under leaders such as Geronimo and Cochise, their legacy of resistance was carried forward in the form of ambush and guerrilla strikes that hampered U.S. soldiers for decades. Their tenacity in the face of huge obstacles confirmed their position in history as masters of terror as well as of survival. The Apache weren't just warriors, they were tacticians, survivors, and innovators. They redefined what it meant to fight, proving that even the most powerful armies could be humbled by strategy, mobility, and ruthless determination. These 3 tribes weren't just warriors, they were forces of terror, reshaping history through fear, strategy, and brutality. Their legacies endure as chilling reminders of the darker side of warfare and human survival. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more forgotten history brought back to light.